Good evening, everyone. Charlotte here from Enriching Environments for our Top Tip Tuesday Masterclass on Tuesday 31st of January. And thank you all for joining. And I'm sorry I missed last week. Hi Vino. Good evening. Yes, last week I had an exciting week. Yes, it was my birthday on Tuesday, but the other things that were exciting last week is my apartment flooded twice. We had really heavy storms here in Dubai last week, and so yeah, my apartment flooding. I'm on the ground floor, but the terrace flooded and the water started coming in. So last week was a really stressful week for me, but this week I'm back. There's no more rain forecast, probably for another 6 years. So hopefully this week is going to pan out in a slightly more calm way than last week. So thank you so much for joining me. And this evening we've got a topic which is quite a provocative title: irrational, unreasonable and impossible. Hi everyone who's joining. Thank you Vino, saying happy birthday. Hi there everyone who's joining Montessori Expat. So the topic this evening, irrational, unreasonable and impossible, it's quite a provocative one, hey, and intentionally so. I've been having a lot of feedback from clients recently, questions from clients, audio notes from clients saying, help, there's this behaviour happening, what can I do? What can I do in the moment? What can I do overall? Hi Jenny, hi everyone who's joining. So this evening we're going to dive into that. We're going to look at this irrational, unreasonable and impossible behaviour that we see sometimes, particularly from our young children, but also older children as well, and see what can we do, what is really going on, and what can we do to support them and support ourselves in these moments. So before we go any further, let's just ground ourselves in this moment here. Let's set our intention for our work together this evening. If you have got a pen and paper nearby, grab your journal, grab your tea, grab your water, grab a pen, because we'll be giving quite a bit of information. You want to note everything down. And just as we're getting comfortable now, let's set our intention for this evening. So you might want to close your eyes, and you can sit still if you like with your hands on your lap, or if you feel like moving, swaying, doing some neck rolls, some shoulder shrugs, that might feel good as well. And we're going to set our intention for this evening's masterclass. What would you like to bring forth this evening? How would you like to feel after our session this evening? What would you like to take away with you? And we'll just sit for a moment, breathing into that. Visualizing how you want to feel, taking that feeling into your body. And when you feel ready, you can open your eyes. And let's begin. So, thank you so much for joining me. Irrational, unreasonable and impossible. This is our topic this evening as a result of lots and lots of client questions about this, client issues about this, and of course I have two of my own children who are often irrational, unreasonable and impossible. Well, that's my perception. So we're all humans having a human experience, and before we talk any more about this, is that it's completely normal for us as parents to feel sometimes really frustrated, and as if we can't find a way through, and as if our child is being deliberately difficult, or being deliberately unkind, or deliberately slow, or I don't know, deliberately difficult in some way. And the truth is that for a child under the age of 6, they're not able to be manipulative. They're not able to try and manipulate situations because their brain isn't yet developed. If you think in that way. So a child under the age of 6 can't really tell the time, and this is because they have no concept of time. They will often, you'll probably recognize this in your own child, they'll sort of get mixed up between what was yesterday, what was last week, and what was a year ago, for example, or in the future, everything is tomorrow, or everything is next week. They don't have a solid grasp of time, and that shows us quite clearly that they have they're not able to do premeditated things to annoy us. They may be acting from a conditioned response, of course. This may be learnt behaviour that they're showing, but they're not being deliberately difficult or premeditative or manipulative in order to make us angry, even though it might feel that way. So that's the first thing for us to know. With a lot of self-compassion, our children, our young children, aren't yet able to have this level of seeking to control situations. And if we think back even one generation, we were told by our parents and our grandparents that children could be manipulative, and he's got you wrapped round your finger. He's got you wrapped. What? He's got you wrapped around his finger. Sentences like that we would hear in this way, that young children are on this mission, this absolute mission to deceive us and annoy us, and all of those sort of old-fashioned and incorrect perceptions of what children really are. What we really know about children is, as I say, they are more or less in the present moment in the first 6 years of life. They're not capable of manipulation, and they depend on us. Children depend on us for their very survival in the early years. So actually, them connecting with us and them being obedient, as it were, in inverted commas, is actually in their interest. They do not want to annoy us. They don't want to push us away. They certainly don't want to and can't manipulate us. So what we see in terms of very difficult, obstinate behavior, irrational, unreasonable, is more a reflection of their age and stage of development. What's going on in their brain? What's going on in their cognitive ability? It's not that they are trying to extract a certain outcome from us or get us to behave in a certain way. This is very much, this is their age and this is their stage. And when they are irrational, unreasonable and impossible, this is a response to often how they are feeling in their body. So tired, hungry, overstimulated, all of the normal things, but even outside of those normal flashpoints that make children, particularly young children, dysregulated. They can still be irrational, unreasonable and impossible, and it isn't anything more than that is where they are in that moment. That is their age and that is their stage of development. Remembering real little gems. Hi Sophie. Little gems like a child's brain does not process at the same speed as an adult's brain until they're 12 years old. So these little gifts of information that we can remember, that our child can't be manipulative, their brain isn't working as fast as ours, and all of the neural pathways that are fusing together all of the time in the early years. What this is doing is laying the foundation and building neural pathways for the future, and building a brain, constructing a human being, which is what Dr. Montessori called it, takes time, takes repetition, takes practice, and takes lots and lots of mistakes along the way as well. Let me just have a sip. And if anyone wants to write any notes, if you have any questions as we go along, please do tap them in. So we've zoomed out. First thing for us to know, we've zoomed out. Our child is at an age and a stage of development that they won't be able to be reasonable, rational, and they won't be able to do all the things that we ask of them even though they want to, even though their connection with us depends on it. Not that they're conscious of that, but even though their connection with us depends on it, they won't be able to do all of the things that we want them to do, for whatever reason, tired, hungry, situational, environmental, all of those things. So if we can zoom out and know it's not personal, they're not being manipulative, and maybe the most important piece of information in this is this will pass. They are, a friend of mine was having resistance with her daughter, who had moved through the toilet learning process, a year and a half, 2 years before, suddenly had a regression, was asking for nappies and really regressing in that stage of development. And when we spoke about it, I was very much reassuring, more than anything, that this is a stage, for whatever reason, we don't need to know what's happening, but she will move through it. She hasn't forgotten how to use the bathroom. She hasn't forgotten how to eliminate or any of those things. But this isn't going to be an issue, probably even in 1 month, but certainly not 1 year, 5 years, 10 years. So when we're zooming out and knowing that our child is where they are and knowing that we have to meet them where they are, we can also zoom out and know that these, particularly when our children are young, and there's these very, very intense issues that we might have around sleep, around toilet learning, getting dressed in the morning, around food perhaps it's around eating. These big flashpoints that we have with our child, where there is this push or welcoming a new sibling, that can be very, very stressful for the older child. When the second child comes into the house, the new baby, and there can be all types of behavior, aggressive behavior, jealousy, all completely normal. And but we can know in our hearts that it doesn't last forever. These are moments in time that they will pass through. And actually, the more that we can accept where they are, and the Jenny's made a really good point. When we can accept where they are and know that the way that we move them through these difficult moments are really, really key, and them coming out the other side, the more we can be with them and allow this emotional expression to pass through, then often the shorter these little episodes are, and then they can go to their next stage of learning. Jenny said a really, really good point, that yes, another reason that our children may be irrational, unreasonable, be being difficult, there's physical reasons as well. Their bodies may not be coping with the requests, certainly yet. If they have low muscle tone, if there's sensory issues as well, then children may want to comply with what we want to do, but they might not be able to. If they're overstimulated, understimulated, if they're sensory seeking or sensory avoidant, there's a whole range of other reasons that make things difficult for our child, and they're not able to move through and move forward with what we need them to do or want them to do. So zoom out. So that's a really, really important point. Zoom out and know that this stage isn't going to last forever. In the moment, what we can do, let's talk about the practical. What we can do in the moment when they say are having a difficult moment, they are being physical, they are throwing things at a new baby, or being too rough with the new baby, they are kicking, they are hitting, they're screaming about wanting a choice of different clothes, they don't want to get dressed, or they don't want that plate, they want this plate. And you feel, we all know how to set up an environment. We know how to set up an environment for choice, we know how to set up an environment for autonomy, and we feel like we're doing all the right things, but still our child is having this tough time. And our work in those moments, those really, really tough moments, is not to become emotionally attached to what's going on. Don't join in the chaos. We, in those moments, we might not be able to be calm, so we can just step away if we're feeling like we're not going to be calm. And I had to do it on Saturday morning when Harry and I had a disagreement about something, and I could feel myself getting really, really angry. So I just left. I said, I'm going out, and I left. He was with lots of other people as well. He wasn't just with me, so I didn't leave him on his own. And I had to go for a walk on the beach and just relax. And then half an hour later, I had finished having my tantrum, and I was absolutely fine. So know that this emotional expression needs to come through them. When something's happening and they're super dysregulated and they're aggressive or being rude, or even what's really, really hard for parents is that our child is aggressive to us or to somebody else, and then they laugh. And we think that, oh, this is a sign that they're being manipulative or they're being unkind. But with very young children, this is a stress response. They know our children don't want to hit, they don't want to hurt others. They're just saying, I'm out of control. All behavior is communication. I'm just out of control. So some children can seem like it gets worse. You know, they're either being rude and they're hitting, they're laughing, or they're just carrying on doing what they're doing. But it's just a stress response. They are completely out of their bodies. And in those moments, our work is to not take it personally, to remove ourselves if the situation is safe for our child to do so, and say less and do less. Just be there in witness if you can. If you need to hold them so that they don't hurt themselves or others, then yes, do that by all means from a safety perspective. But we're not seeking to calm them down in that moment. We're not seeking to stop them from feeling what they're feeling in that moment, because that emotional expression needs to come through them. And the emotional expression for a 2, 3, 4, 5, 6-year-old might be screaming, release, yelling, hitting, all of those things. But over time, with our response that is calm, that is supportive, that is connective, that is what helps them regulate over time. And these episodes get shorter and shorter. The episodes get shorter, and the period between each episodes gets longer and longer. So know that emotional expression needs to come through them. Honor that emotional expression that comes through them, and know it needs to be released. If that gets stuck in the body, then that's going to build up and build up and build up. And know that there might not be any reason from our perspective as an adult that our child is making irrational demands or being unreasonable or being unkind or hitting. There may not be something that we understand. And our work isn't to really go into that. Our work is to be there in the moment. Think calm, confident leader. If we need to step out of the room to take some breaths and to move away from a situation that feels really overwhelming for us, and we don't want to do something which is going to be hurtful and we're going to regret later, then stepping out of the room is the best thing to do, and saying that we're going to do that, saying I'm going to step out the room to make myself calm. That's also a really beautiful piece of role modeling. So our child, they might not acknowledge it or feel it or see it in the moment, but if we can say, I need to step out to make myself calm, that is such a beautiful role modeling for them of what happens. And know that this regulation that we seek for our children, that comes over time, years and years and years of practice, years and years of us co-regulating with them, years and years of us being there and staying connected even when they're having these difficult moments. Not punishment, not shaming, keeping them safe if we need to. Vino asked a really, really good question. We need to keep them safe in terms of not letting them harm themselves or harm others, or try to stop them from kicking or kicking or hitting or damaging anything. My son, when he gets very, very out of his body, he will kick things, and my words are the same, that I can't let you damage that, but I'm right here for you. Let's release that in another way. And if he needs to shout and scream, then I can join in with him and do that. We will need to, redirect if they're going to hurt themselves or hurt other people, but it's not in a shaming way at all. I've had some good comments here. Let's dive in. Vino says, should we say something to them like, hitting hurts, I can't let you hit me? Do you know, it's really funny. I'm really torn about this one, because saying I can't let you hit me, they might carry on anyway, They're completely out of their skin and out of their body. So rational responses don't work. What you can do is just say, as you said, hitting hurts, that's factual, and instead I'm going to move away because I don't want to be hit, something like that, because I can't let you hit me. You can't stop them. If they're hitting you and hitting you and hitting you and they're big enough, you can't stop. You say, I'm going to move away. I don't like that. That's hurting. And also when they're dysregulated, saying that, it's not going to register initially. So sometimes we've got to find a different way to connect. And I can tell you something that works really, really well for Harry and Olivia. They're in this stage of really, really out of their bodies. And anything I say makes them angry. If I try and approach them, if I try and be playful, if I try and cuddle them, if I try and speak to them, it makes them really, really angry. It makes them more angry. But the one thing for Harry and Olivia that will not instantly, that's not true. I'll take a step back. That within 20, 30 seconds will calm them is that I will go to the bookshelf, I will take one of their favourite books and I will sit down and start reading. So I actually ignore the behaviour that's going on, as long as they're safe. I ignore the behaviour that's going on and I sit down and start reading out loud one of their favourite books. And it works every time, because for them, and it might be different for your child, and that's often what to do, is to play with what works for your child. So what we need to do in that moment to be able to just sit down and do something else, and that might be for your child sitting down and start eating a snack. You know, if they love cucumbers and hummus, sit down and start eating that or start preparing that. But do it in such a way where we are carrying on and we're still being loving and supportive, and we're obviously keeping a close eye that they're not going to hurt themselves or what have you, but we need to do something to help them move that through and move on, so that they can come back into their bodies. And for some children, if their moment of dysregulation is only 10, 20, 30 seconds, we don't need to do anything to move through. But if they're super, super dysregulated and they're not able to move through it, then we can just support them, show them the tools that are going to help them, offer them a different experience, a different sensory experience that's going to get them back into their body. So as I say, I will just sit down and I'll start reading the book. I don't invite them to read with me. I will just sit and start reading. And within 20, 30 seconds, then they'll come and sit with me and they'll start reading. And then because remembering is that when they're in that moment of dysregulation and they're really, really upset, that is not a teaching moment. They're in their amygdala, they're in their fight, flight, freeze or fawn mode, in their lizard brain. That is not the time that we can say, we can teach anything. We can, of course, as we said, stop, say that something hurts and move away to protect ourselves, but no other teaching can go on. Just go on with the factual, the immediate. That hurts, I'm going to move away and sit here. And knowing also in that moment is they don't want to hurt you. They are just out of their bodies. They may be frustrated and they may need to hit something, but they certainly do not want to do something that ruptures their connection with their caregiver. So what can we do to reconnect them? So reading a book works really, really well for Olivia and Harry. It might be something different for your children, either in your classroom or at home. And then what happens is that after reading the book for a minute or two with Olivia or Harry, then they are completely back in their body. And I can feel there'll be this moment where they're first sitting next to me and reading, and they're closer and closer, and then they'll snuggle in. And then by the end of the book, before the end of the book, I'm going to feel that deep exhale. So I'll know, okay, they're okay. They've come back. They're back in their bodies. And then at the end of that book, that's the time when I judge, okay, would you like another one? Or I could tell something was happening back there. You were having a tough time. What can I help you with? Or if you know what it was, if it was, obvious that the pants that they wanted to wear weren't clean or dry or whatever, you can talk about that. But if it's something that you don't know what it's about, you just say, I saw you having a tough time before we started reading the book. What do you need? Would you like to talk about it? Would you like a cuddle? Shall we go and dance it out or jump on the trampoline? Or they might just want to stay connected to you. And then if they have hit you, You know, when we talk about this every week, trusting in the child's innate goodness. So we go back and we say, I know you didn't want to hit me. We trust in their innate goodness, and we affirm to them that we know that they didn't want to do that they were out of their body. So you say, I know you didn't want to hit me. Tell me what was happening. I saw you were having a tough time. What was happening for you? I'm here to support you. I love you, you know. I made a mistake. You made a mistake. That's okay. And some children who are really sensitive, like Harry, for example, gets really, really upset. Actually, both of them do. If something's happened and they've hit or hurt me, or been rough with the cat, or broken something, they're so full of remorse afterwards. And that's not from any lecture from me or anything to do with my reaction. They know they don't want to do these things, but as soon as they come back into their body, they realize, and I know, I trust deep within myself that over time, these, as I was trying to say earlier, these intense periods get shorter and shorter, and the distance between them gets longer and longer. And as they get older, what it feels like for me, for Olivia and Harry, is as our children get older, I notice more quickly when they're getting dysregulated. I can tell in advance before it's going to happen, so I can either prepare myself or go on a different track, do something different, so that dysregulation isn't so intense. But that's in those, you know, type of situations where, you know, I know they're hungry or tired or something. Often I can see the signs that something's happening and then act accordingly. Jenny said, yes, we need to access them, whether they're hurting themselves, others, or damaging things. We leave them and just observe. Yeah, exactly. If they are hurting themselves, other people, or damaging something, yeah, of course, we need to stay really, really close and make sure those things that don't happen. But everything else, we've just got to be there in loving support, close by, as close as they'll let us be, and just observe all of that come through. And then if you have a way of supporting your child and coming back into their body, then you can do that. And then afterwards, after they are calm again, you'll say, okay, what was happening in your body? Let's release it. What did that texture feel like? Let's go on the trampoline and bounce all of that scratchy red texture out. Where did you feel it? Did you feel it in your tummy? Did you feel it in your heart? Did you feel it in your legs? Let's get it all out now, so that you are you're again giving them this chance, embodiment, getting everything out, what we're feeling inside in fullness, and then removing it. So does anyone have any questions or anything else they'd like to add? I think I've covered everything. Yeah, I saw you having a tough time. Yeah, it's getting curious afterwards, after the event, when they've been really dysregulated. It's getting curious. What happened back there? I saw that your fists were clenched and you were banging things, and you tore that book, and I know you love that book. I know you wouldn't want to do that. What's happening for you? Get curious, but genuinely curious. The trick is to not have any element of blame in there, because when shame comes in, and Brene Brown does so much amazing work about shame and how shame holds us back, and shame comes from our experiences in childhood predominantly. So how shame can hold us back. So if we are able to go back through and talk to our child, and this is easier as they get older as well, about what happened, what were the things that happened that led them to that point of dysregulation, without any shame, without any blame, then they're starting, as their cognitive abilities increase, they are starting to work it out for themselves. This is what happened. Okay, I was feeling really, really hungry, and now that's why I behaved in that way. That doesn't mean that once we discuss this on one occasion, then they're going to get it perfectly every time. But this is building their brain in a healthy way, that they know that they behave in certain ways when they're tired or hungry or frustrated and all those things. Because those situations when we're adults, that we're tired and we're hungry and we're frustrated, all of those things happen on a daily basis, hey? And what we can do now for our children is gifts for when they're adults. I love that quote. We're not parenting our children for today, we're parenting them for the adults they will become. Imagine how powerful that will be. Our children learning these skills now when they're little, so when they are adults, they're not like we are in our generation of blaming things on other people and externalizing things, and then us having to do all of this huge amounts of work on ourselves because we realize that we don't know how to connect healthily, we don't know how to release our emotions healthily. And that's what's really exciting about being with children, whether it's our own children or working with children, is we are shaping a new generation. And that to me is really, really exciting. Parenting is really, really tough and really, really challenging. But when we're on this path of supporting our child through these tough moments, we're inevitably going to be triggered, and our triggers are our teachers. This is this really, really deep work we go into in parenting and as educators, is that when there's something that really triggers us, we know that there's something in there, there's work to do, there's a shadow to uncover, there's a wound of ours to uncover from our own childhood. We had an incident at home this morning that uncovered so much for myself and my partner, and it was and it was really, really interesting how everything played out, and it brought up so much for both of us. And this is the gift of parenting, is that we can come back time and time again to what we need to learn, where we need to heal, what we need to really gently unpick and look at, and know that there's work for us to do, because our child in front of us is a mirror to the little child within us, as a 2-year-old or 3-year-old, 4-year-old, 5-year-old. Olivia's now 8-year-old. So this is a beautiful gift. Oh no, Jenny has load shedding in South Africa. I hope you can come back online, Jenny. Anyone has any more questions? I'm going to have another little sip. And whilst we're talking about our inner work and our triggers and all of this work that we have as parents, particularly in this generation where we're just realizing and starting to uncover and knowing that our children are the greatest spiritual teacher we're ever going to have, and they just show us our wounds and they show us where we need to heal. For those of you who haven't had a chance to dive into the information about my embodied parenting journey, we start our embodied parenting journey with the new moon on February the 20th. This is a 6-month journey that we will travel together with 3 phases where we are honouring our legacy and where we've come from, heritage and where we've come from, creating our legacy for the future. We are looking at the gifts that previous generations have brought to us, and we're setting our intentions for the 6-month journey ahead. And we're going to be looking at attachment. We're going to be doing embodiment practices, meditation and embodiment practices in every single session. We're having a monthly live workshop to coincide with the new moon every month from February to July. And you're going to have self-paced resources as well, which is a Facebook forum, download of the meditation that you can listen to at home, a pre-recorded workshop which will cover the topic that we're dealing with for that month. And so yes, this is a 6-month journey to really go inside ourselves. Parenting is the most important work of our lives, and when we are able to approach this journey with curiosity and self-compassion and joy as well, because the more we can uncover, then the more we're able to ride those waves, ride through those storms that our children have, because we know that we're healing ourselves at the same time. And there'll be moments of growth when we're like, wow, that used to really trigger me, but I've worked through that. And other things are work in process. Nothing is perfect, but when we're on this path of feeling deeper into ourselves so we can understand ourselves and understand our children, there's just gifts that keep coming as we uncover the different layers. And the more connected we can be to ourselves, the more connected we can be to our children. And I think we know so much now about neuroscience and the way the brain develops and how if we are going to create a more compassionate and more peaceful and harmonious world, then we have to start with childhood, and it has to be that the way that we are connecting with the youngest members of society, the most important members of our society. So if you'd like more information about the Embodied Parenting Program, click on the link in my bio. Jenny, who is joining us from South Africa, she is joining us for the Embodied Parenting Journey, which I'm really, really excited about. We have 5 people so far. We have someone in Toronto, we have Jenny in Cape Town in beautiful South Africa, and we have 3 people in Dubai. So this is a really small group mentoring program as well. It's not a large group at all. This is a small group mentoring program. So if you'd like to be part of that, click the link in bio. Just send me some information or DM me on here. Vino has said, can you explain a little about the amygdala, please? So yes, I can. So the amygdala is the primitive part of our brain, the oldest, the most primitive part of our brain. That is our reptilian brain, which is responsible just purely for survival. And when our amygdala cannot think, it can only keep us alive. So if we think that's a reptilian primitive part of our brain, that part of our brain is fight or flight, or freeze or fawn. It can only do those reflex responses. It can't think or do anything else other than give an immediate response to what it perceives to be danger. So if our child is having a tantrum and being aggressive to us, depending on our history, depending on how we're feeling that day, depending on how tired we are, how rested we are, how stressed we are, what our cortisol levels are like, then we might be triggered with our child hitting us. And that would be completely normal for us to be triggered when our child hitting us. That would mean we would probably go into our amygdala, our reptilian brain, and we would either fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. Most likely, we might react by pushing our child away, or unconsciously, pushing them away, or smacking them by accident, or something like that. That is something that happens when we're in our amygdala. And our work as adults, as parents, as anyone who works with children, is to notice those moments when we're triggered, so we can come to the point, and we're not perfect, and we're only human, in that we are responding less and less from our amygdala. We are noticing when we're triggered, and we are finding techniques to be able to be in our body in those moments and not fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. So the reptilian brain, it's a really, really primitive part of the brain. There's no thinking going on, it's just survival. And the only way that we can, I don't want to say tame, because that's not the right word. What we can do in order to bring more balance to ourselves in these moments that we're triggered is practices where we cultivate awareness of our bodily sensations. How we're feeling just before we get triggered, there will be a reaction in our body. Noticing how we're feeling, noticing when we're building up to being triggered by something that sometimes it's just instantaneous, but other times, particularly when we're with young children, there's usually a build up, and we will be able to feel in our bodies, okay, this doesn't feel good, this doesn't feel good. And then, for example, our child throws something and it smashes, and then we might explode, for example, the fight, the shout or push or whatever it might be. That's what might happen in those moments. But the amygdala has got one job, and that's to keep us safe. So that was very, very useful when we were reptiles, when we were in very, very primitive times. Now our work is to bring balance into our lives. There's lots of ways that we can do this. We can do this through tapping. We can do it through meditation. Meditation strengthens the muscle which joins the 2 hemispheres of the brain, and that is something that balances our brain, which means that we can be more grounded and more calm in stressful situations. So the amygdala was very useful for keeping us safe we're in primitive times. Now it is something which isn't a thinking part of the brain, and it gets switched on when we are triggered by something. It could be a memory, it could be a smell, it could be our child shouting us, it could be our partner shouting us, it could be a dropped glass, it could be anything like that. And so what we know is that, for us to know, is that when we're triggered and when we're in our amygdala, we are not able to be rational. And I believe that we then stay in the amygdala and this reaction for 90 seconds. So our work is to find what calms us, what can bring us back into our body so we're no longer triggered. And it's about 90 seconds, that period of time. So what can we do? Is that breathing? Is that dance? Is that stamping? Is that going on the trampoline? And we all find our own different path of what works for us. Vino, I know we've discussed the embodied parenting program, but this is the type of thing we're going to be covering in the program. It's going to be really, really deep into this type of stuff that is going to allow us to actually, it's not just for parenting. It's about transcending the really meaty, the really deep stuff that's going on within us. It's about uncovering what that is and then working with that to move into this more elevated state, or parenting or educating or whatever it is. So it's really, the embodied parenting program is thank you, Jenny, I'm so excited you're joining. It's the embodied parenting program is a program about parenting, but it's not really a program about parenting. It's a program about everything. It's a program about the way that we live our lives. It's the program about how we are in our bodies, how we can regulate our nervous systems. There's lots of Montessori and child development and all that really good neuroscience, interesting stuff, which is practical in the moment. But what we're going to do as well is we're going to go deeper. We're going to go into the deeper layers, and we're going to find out what's going on in our hearts, in our souls, and we're going to be bringing that forward in this beautiful container, small container of just maybe 2 handfuls of parents, of educators. And we're going to do weekly sharing in the Facebook group. We're going to have tailored guidance, and we're going to support each other in this scenario, because we're going to have we've already got parents with children of different ages, grown-up children as well as little children, and we've got educators in there as well. So it's going to be something really special. Thank you so much for joining me. This was a really long one, I think. Goodness, yeah, it was. Thank you so much for joining me. As we finish, let's just close our eyes and just close this space, close this container, and breathe in. Maybe place one hand on your heart and one on your tummy if that feels good. Feel back to that intention that we set at the beginning. How does that feel now? How does that sit now? Do you have answers now, or maybe you have more questions? I'm going to be uploading this tomorrow on all of the channels, my usual ones, and so that will be available within 24 hours. Thank you so much for joining me this evening. And those of you who are on the embodied parenting journey, I can't wait to see you. We're going to be having our first call just to go through logistics and complete the registration process. We're going to do those next week. But until then, I'll see you all soon. Take care. Have a beautiful evening. Thank you so much for joining. Thanks for all the great questions, everyone, and the great comments and additions that you all made. I'll speak to you soon.